Hi, welcome to this week's Midweek Connection. My name is Todd Jordan. I serve as senior pastor here at Strawbridge United Methodist Church, and I am delighted that you've joined me. Not a lot of people think about it, not a lot of people realize it, but did you know that the reason that human rights is such a significant part of democracy is because of the Christian church and our Christian values? Now, if you trace the history of government back to when democracy first began, you would go back to the 5th century BC in the Greeks and the philosophers. But in terms of this idea of all people created equal, and these truths being self-evident, that, according to N.T. Wright and Michael Bird in their book, Jesus and the Powers, that whole notion of human rights being inalienable is from Christians. They write this: there would never be human rights as self-evident truths without scriptural notions of the image of God and the command to love your neighbor as yourself as it was interpreted in Christian societies. And so the reason why we have that as part of the DNA of America, for example, is the founders were rooted in Christianity. And in their book, they talk about all the various forms of government. And of course, Christians have had to, for the past several centuries, these many centuries, have had to put up with all sorts of different types of governments all over the world. But they would argue that while no government is perfect, democracy is probably the least bad you can go with. I would agree 100%. They quote Luke Bretherton in their book, who writes, "Christians do not need democracy to practice their faith, but democracy enshrines some central Christian commitments. And so, as a judgment of practical reason, democracy should be an aspirational feature of political order for Christians." I couldn't agree more. I love our country and I love its democracy. I think it's important to support that. I also think it needs to be protected from time to time. And so now I do think I need to comment on this. Just recently, the Supreme Court made a decision that I disagree with. Now, you may disagree with me, and that's fine, but I feel like as a Christian, I need to speak to this because I don't think it's right. The Supreme Court has lifted restrictions on ICE immigration-related raids in Los Angeles. They can now pick up anybody based on broad criteria that includes speaking Spanish, gathering at locations day laborers often congregate. And so the Supreme Court majority offered no explanation for the decision, but Justice Kavanaugh did write in support of the decision that it was reasonable to briefly question people who meet multiple common sense criteria for possible illegal presence, including employment in day labor or construction and limited proficiency. I disagree. I share the opinion of the 3 justices that dissented from that Supreme Court decision, and they write this: "We should not have to live in a country where the government can seize anyone who looks Latino, speaks Spanish, and appears to work a low-wage job. Rather than stand idly by while our Constitution freedoms are lost, I dissent," is what they write. I agree. Democracy is a place where people have the right to be free. Democracy is also the place where we are innocent until proven guilty. I am not okay with masked armed enforcers seizing and detaining anyone they want and keeping them until they can prove their innocence. In my opinion, that's not how democracy works. And I don't think the church, the Christian church, that is the place where human rights come from, our Savior, Jesus Christ, needs to be silent. In fact, quite the contrary, I think we have a responsibility to speak, to let our leaders know that we want democracy where everybody's equal and everybody's treated fairly and everybody's presumed innocent until they're proven guilty. That's just what I think. And if you feel the same way, feel free to speak up and speak out. At any rate, God bless you. Thank you so much for joining me. I look forward to worshiping with you this Sunday.